Welcome to Short Scale Modelling. This is part 14 of the Hachette HMS hood build, scale 1 to 200. In this part, I'm going to be placing on the decking and making up some of the smaller scale bolts. So let's jump into this and see how I get on. I'm going to be beginning with issue 85, and as you can see there, there's a lot of little ammo boxes which I've already pre-painted. If you remember, I'd done most of that in the last episode, so they'll be going on. And then issue 86, I'm going to be dealing with the lifeboats, well, they're not lifeboats, little boats with the elbow motors and so on. There's quite a lot of these to build, all through various issues. The hull is getting painted in Rebel Aquacolor 43 medium grey, just like the main shape. Majority of the parts are going to be painted white, so I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 301 white silk. There's only a couple of colour changes in there, so it's easier for these photo etch parts just to paint them on the sprue. But if you're familiar with my videos, you know I do this quite a lot. I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 88 Ochre Brown for the inside of these boats. It doesn't really matter what brown colour that you use on here, I just happen to like this colour. So while I'm waiting for the paint to dry on the boats, I'm just placing on some of the pre-made hose reels and hoses that I made up. There's quite a few of these to put on, which I'll be placing on throughout the build. They're getting held on with white PVA glue. Next to go on are some of the ammo boxes that I pre-painted in the previous episode. There's quite a lot to go on. There's various shapes and sizes, so I'm having to refer to the structures quite often while putting these in. But saying that, there are markings on the deck for these little boxes to go on as well. So as long as I pay attention to which box goes where, everything should be okay. I'm beginning to build up the little boats now, and first of all I should say that the photo etch parts on this section of the build are very poor compared to the other photo etch parts that I had in this kit. These ones bend very easily and out of shape to the extent where cutting them off the sprue, they're just folding into each other. So I'm having to spend a lot of time straightening them all out. And what makes it worse is they don't actually fit the boat properly. So everyone has to be trimmed and fitted. So there's a lot of test fitting and reworking just to get them up. I'm using 92 brass for the propellers, or by Rebel Aquacolor. The rudder and propeller was actually quite difficult to fit, but not as much as I thought it was. The only issue there was just the size of the parts, because they're absolutely tiny to fit. You can see the screw going in there, or the propeller. It's such a small piece. I had to be very careful I didn't lose it. As I said, these boats come over various issues, so I'll just quickly show you the issues here. This is issue 87, and they have practically the same sprue, photo etch sprue. There's just subtle differences depending on what type of ship it is, the bigger the cabin and so forth. But they're all basically the same. The same with issue 90. Once again, this is a bigger boat, but it's the same principle. And once more, same with issue 92. So there's various boats and sizes. I've pre-painted most of them by this point. As I just thought I would show you one or two pieces how it actually goes. There's more ammo boxes and so forth to do as well from these issues. For the smaller boats, I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 82 Dark Earth to simulate the wooding structure inside the boat. And for this section, the last issue I'm doing is issue 93, and once again, these are just some more small boats. In fact, there's only one on this one. And like before, it's made up exactly the same way and painted the same way as well. And that's all this series of boats made up for this part. They're not brilliant. They might look okay there, but close up there's a few issues with them. but it's the best I can do, I'm afraid. So going on to issue 88, well, back to one of the older issues, and this is dealing with the decking here, and putting on the other gunwale, I think it is. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but predominantly it's the decking and placing on here. So first of all, the top piece goes on, and as you can see there's a bit of a gap, and this has been the story throughout the model. Originally I thought, well, maybe it was me when I was started this build a few years ago. Maybe that I just didn't put it together well enough. But looking at it, and once I started putting the decking on, I realised it really wasn't me. It's just the way it's designed. There is gapping issues all over the place with it. So they need to be filled, and this is what I'm doing here now. I'm using a bit of sprue glue as filler, so that's melted down sprue, and I'm just putting it in this area now because this also acts as a bonding agent. And when I place the part back on, that'll give me enough depth without having to smear it out around everywhere. So then all I do is just place it on, then I'll just wipe away any excess once I've got it into position. I'm now cutting out the decking. I'm using my hobby knife here. I've got a new blade in here as well. If you're ever doing this, just be careful. It might be wise to use a steel ruler if you're not confident enough to cut them. But just remember, if you go with the grain, the cut will be easier. It's when you go against the grain of these sheets, the cutting comes quite difficult. And once the part's cut out, there's a little hole that I have to punch in to hold one of the guns, I think it is. So I'm just using my one of my molding tools here as a punch, and just pressing down because it doesn't take much effort to dig out this little hole, but this little molding chisel has a round blade, so it gives you a good circle. And other parts are having to be removed on certain sheets. These are just little squares, so it's easy enough just to use your knife to cut these out. So I'm placing on the decking here now. I'm just dry fitting these. I'm not placing them in position at the moment. The instructions say dry fit it, then glue them in place. But what I'm doing is I'm dry fitting these ones, and then I'll cut out the rest of the ones for the deck. And once I've got all the parts for this particular section of deck, then I'll glue them into position. So that's them all dry fitted. So I'm actually cementing them in place now, and again they're getting cemented in with white glue. Now there is a couple of little fitting issues, surprise surprise. This one, it may have actually been my fault. I don't think I put in the decking straight enough, or maybe I didn't cut the actual deck itself 100% straight. There was a little bit of gap that I had to sort out. But again, there's another issue with these decking plates. The seams don't blend in seamlessly. You can still see them, which annoys me somewhat. Some more than others. Again, I'm not sure whether that was because of me and my gun, or whether the plates are like this. I'm not 100% sure. The little slithers I'm putting in now, that's just to solve a few tiny little errors that I made along the way. You will see them, but the other central line, for instance, that's quite prominent. You can see that there. So I was a bit disappointed with that. Now the decking's on, I have to place on some of the air vents and ammo boxes, and I discovered one of the air vents is missing. Whether I lost it or not, I'm not 100% sure, but with this kit, there's a good chance it wasn't there in the first place. So I'm having to make one up. So what I've got here is just a scrap bit of decking wood, and I'm just going to cut it roughly to shape of the event that I do have. Now I'll be making 2 of these because I want them to look similar, because I'm not going to get them to look like what the moulded one is. So once I've got the bit of wood to size, I've got a bit of scrap photo etch here, and I'm just bending it around with a pair of pliers, sorry, to give it a round cap sort of look for the top of the scrap bit of wood. And I'm trying to get this as tight as possible, bending it around, but I don't want it too tight that I can't fit the wooden part onto it. And once that's done, I've just snipped off any excess, and it's time to fit the part to the wood. I'm using a little bit of super glue to actually hold this in position, but as you can see, it's quite a small piece, so I'm just squeezing it in a little bit more so that once the little bit of wood goes in, it's not going to come out, even though I'm securing it with glue. It won't be really necessary. It is quite difficult to do just for the size of it, but as you can see that I was able to push in a little bit of wood right at the top. And once it's on, I'm just going to trim it down to size, and being careful not to bend it completely out of shape as well. And for the ends, I'm just putting a little bit of filler in where the gap on the photo edge part would be. So once the curve is made, there's obviously going to be a small gap where the wood is. So I'm just filling that in before painting. That's the 2 of them made. The one I've just touched with my brush here, that's the original, and those 2 little ones are the ones I made. So they look similar, but not exactly like the moulded part. So it's just time to place them on to the deck now. And again, I'm using a little bit of PVA glue to hold these. And you can see the little square location points on the deck for these pieces to be fitted onto. When you put them on, make sure you get them in right. It's easier said than done, believe it or not, with the parts being so small, because the cement will tend to slide them around a little bit too much. It's one of the reasons as well I'm not using super glue for this, because it will set too quickly. That's one of the advantages of using a white glue. But the disadvantage, as I've said, it takes a very long time for them to dry. So 2 more vents are going on, and these are slightly bigger than the front ones, but they're going on in the same way as the 2 little front ones I made up, just clearing any excess glue as I go along. So now it's all made up, I'm just placing them onto the deck, and I think this is a good place to close part 14. A few problems on the way, and I'm sure there's more problems to come, but I'll see if I can work through them. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other videos, including the updates for this build. If you subscribe to the channel, you will be updated of all my new content, particularly for this build as well, of course. Hit that like button, and of course leave a comment. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.